When billions of taxpayer dollars are frozen, international aid halted, and lives put at risk, who's really accountable? Watch as Senator Patty Murray confronts Secretary Rubio over shocking mismanagement and the real-world consequences of unchecked power.
Senator Murray.
Thank you very much, Chair Graham. Senator Schatz, welcome to your new role. I look forward to working with both of you. Secretary Rubio, I am deeply concerned that you have overseen a systemic campaign to dismantle USAID, impound billions of dollars that this committee actually provided, and unilaterally remake the Department of State without the slightest bit of concern that you lack the authority to do that without Congress. It has created chaos, it's caused preventable deaths across the globe, and it has undermined American leadership. As Ranking Member Schatz noted, what you've done is outright illegal, a complete violation of bipartisan appropriation laws, the Impoundment Control Act, and the Anti-Deficiency Act. Within hours of taking office, President Trump halted all foreign aid in flagrant defiance of the law. Now, under your watch, Secretary Rubio, that freeze was implemented with chaos and cruelty. And then you illegally shuttered USAID, placing everyone on leave, halting life-saving work, literally locking people out of the building and out of their devices, even in dangerous corners of our world. You paid people not to work, abandoned our partners across the globe, and chaotically recalled global staff, putting more than 1,600 Americans who served our country abroad in limbo. And when you shut down the USAID payment system, you even refused to pay for services provided before the illegal freeze. You fought all the way to the Supreme Court, against paying for services U.S. businesses already rendered with funding that Congress already provided. And I know you know, Mr. Secretary, but you lost. And I assume you need the reminder because to this day, you have not made all the payments that are required by our nation's highest court, and as a result, American companies continue to lay off American workers. And by the way, you do continue to lose in court, including just yesterday over your move to illegally replace the U.S. Institute of Peace Leadership, and in recent cases over international broadcasting. Now, eventually, Mr. Secretary, you sent Congress notice of your intent to collapse the USAID into state. Only you didn't consult with this committee. That's required by law. It came without justification, also required by law, and it came long after USAID was reduced to rubble. So sadly, disregard for our laws and values, to me, has sort of become a pattern of your tenor, revoking visas when someone writes an op-ed you don't like, or reaching a secret deal to use taxpayer dollars to jail U.S. residents in a notorious foreign prison, no due process, or pointlessly leaving food assistance to rot in storage. Actually, in Dubai, we now have 500 tons of high-energy biscuits that expire in July. They're bought, they're shipped, they're stored, all at taxpayer expense. But you've condemned them to waste, and that is one example of many. Now, another pattern that I'm deeply worried about is transparency. We have pressed you for information. Our staffs have sent you countless emails and briefing requests so we can do our job here. There are hundreds of unanswered requests and no effort to address them. And Mr. Secretary, that's got to change. Even your plan to reorganize the State Department came with no information on the 270 offices you are moving to eliminate, the proposed layoffs, or how USAID would be merged into state. I won't ask you whether impounding billions of dollars is legal. It is not. I won't ask you whether it's efficient to pay people not to work or fire them without determining staffing needs. But, and I won't ask you if cutting 91% of our counter-narcotic and law enforcement programs make us safer, abruptly abandoning agreements with allies makes us stronger, or ceding our global leadership to China makes us more prosperous. Of course not. We know that. We have worked together for years in a bipartisan way to advance U.S. interests and fund those programs. So with respect to my colleagues, how long are we going to sit here and watch this silently? Are we going to roll over as Trump tramples our laws and undermines our U.S. leadership, burns down what we have spent decades building, and let millions of people across our globe suffer and die? Or are we going to stand up, push back, assert our constitutional power of the purse? And to my colleagues on both sides, this is the moment to decide whether this committee continues to be a powerful bipartisan force, a force that I think we've all been proud of for a very long time, a force that is focused on safety and economic strength and national security, focused on leading the world in research and development and countering China and others with our soft power and our military power. Every single member of this committee knows what we are risking by letting this administration tear down so much. On USAID and other programs, we can always talk about how we can make things work better and other reforms. I don't think any of us are opposed to any of those considerations. We have been doing that in a bipartisan way for a long time. But that's not actually what Trump's fiscal year 2026 budget proposes. Now, Mr. Secretary, I know you would like to give a 5-minute speech back to me, but I only have a few seconds left, and I do need some information from you. As I said, we have asked and have not gotten. Can you tell me, will you share the text and details with my staff of your agreement with El Salvador and any other similar arrangements, including the funding details that we need to have?
Well, first, I'd like to respond to your 7-minute speech, which is primarily, I disagree like 99% of it. It's just not true. We've done nothing that's illegal. We've been in over 600 briefings to Congress. We've asked questions. We've answered questions repeatedly. We get hundreds of questions a day. We respond them as quickly as possible. And your characterization of the moves that we made
Mr. Secretary, I would
false.
just tell you, we are here because we need the information so that we can write our budget and on a bipartisan.
Well, you'll have the information you need to write a budget.
Okay, so will we get the details on the El Salvador arrangement? Yes or no?
Well, which Salvador arrangement are you
Your agreement that you've made with them about.
Well, what agreement? The president of El Salvador agreed to take in 250 gangbangers, and we sent them.
Funding details we have not gotten. We need to see what the costs are.
Well, we haven't funded that. We've provided them law enforcement assistance. I know you just claimed that we cut all this law enforcement assistance. We provided El Salvador and other countries law enforcement assistance. They have the right to spend that money any way they wish. But they did us a big favor. They took 250 dangerous, trained out. We didn't deport any U.S. residents. No U.S. residents were reported.
I'm not going to argue with you on that point.
Well, it's not an argument, but don't say we deported U.S. residents, because we didn't. I don't deport anybody.
I'm not asking.
But we didn't deport U.S. residents.
I'm asking you whether we can see the details of the arrangements, including the funding details.
Well, I'm giving you the details. The arrangements are we provide law enforcement funding to El Salvador, among other countries. How they choose to spend that money internally is up to them.
No.
But I can tell you.
Can you give me the details on the 200-plus offices you're proposing to eliminate?
Sure, we've provided that.
We need that. Can I get your commitment to give us those?
It's part of our reorg.
How about the details and justifications of your proposed rescissions from programs you claim are out of alignment with administration priorities? Are we going to get the details of that, funding priorities?
On rescissions and impoundment and things of this nature, that's obviously an OMB function, and I would talk to them about that in regard to what's going to go on with that money. I can tell you the contracts we canceled, and I can list to you the contracts we canceled and the rationale why, because I went through them myself.
Can you get those to us like today? So
the contracts?
Yes, and the funding arrangements that you've made. That's what I'm asking for.
Funding arrangements with who?
For any of the rescissions, for any of the funding, for any of the multiple congressional directives that you have given out, so that we as an appropriations committee can make our funding decisions.
Sure, you're going to have all that information when you put together a budget.
Thank you. I enjoyed that.
In this extraordinary congressional hearing, Senator Patty Murray held Secretary Marco Rubio to account over his management of USAID and the broader implications of the Trump administration's policies. What's remarkable here isn't just the heat of the exchange, it's the legal, ethical, and global stakes at play. Murray isn't merely criticizing administrative decisions, she's illustrating how unilateral actions by one branch of government can have cascading effects worldwide. By impounding funds that Congress had appropriated, shutting down offices without proper oversight, and halting critical international aid, Rubio's actions, as Murray points out, aren't just bureaucratic missteps. They challenge the very framework of the law and the principle of checks and balances that underpins American governance. She emphasizes the real human cost, preventable deaths overseas, abandoned partners, and disrupted programs that were designed to stabilize vulnerable communities. When you hear Murray mention 500 tons of high-energy biscuits left to expire in Dubai, it's easy to dismiss as a logistical quibble. But in reality, it's emblematic of deeper systemic failures. These aren't just wasted supplies, they represent wasted taxpayer dollars, broken promises to allies, and lost opportunities to protect global stability and U.S. strategic interests. What viewers should take away here is how congressional oversight functions as more than a formality. It's a safeguard for accountability. Murray repeatedly stresses that her committee needs information to do its job, to ensure that appropriated funds are used effectively, legally, and in a manner that supports American interests abroad. This is a concrete lesson in civics. Even high-ranking officials are bound by law, and transparency isn't optional, it's essential for democracy. Another critical layer of this exchange is how it highlights the tension between executive discretion and legislative authority. Rubio's repeated references to reorganizations, consolidations, and funding arrangements underscore the complexity of government bureaucracy. However, Murray's persistent questioning exposes a fundamental issue. When discretion is exercised without oversight, the consequences ripple far beyond Washington, D.C., affecting foreign aid, national security, and international partnerships. It's a vivid example of why co-equal branches of government exist, to prevent unilateral decisions from undermining laws designed to protect both American citizens and global stability. This hearing also teaches viewers about accountability in real time. When Murray presses Rubio for specifics about funding arrangements with El Salvador, including the cost and scope of programs, she isn't just asking for paperwork. She's illustrating the principle that democracy relies on informed oversight. Citizens and the media rely on these processes to understand how public money is spent and how policies impact lives domestically and internationally. Ultimately, what makes this exchange compelling and educational is how it bridges law, ethics, policy, and human consequences. It's a masterclass in how elected officials and bureaucrats interact, and how lapses in accountability can create cascading effects across communities, countries, and institutions. Senator Murray's insistence on transparency, adherence to law, and ethical governance is a stark reminder that the mechanisms of oversight are not ceremonial, they are vital. By watching and understanding this exchange, viewers gain insight into how Congress exercises its constitutional powers, why oversight is critical to preventing misuse of authority, and how global policy decisions are tied directly to domestic governance. It's a lesson not just in politics, but in civic literacy, accountability, and the importance of informed engagement. Stay informed, stay critical, and engage with content that unpacks these complex topics. Subscribe to Left Lens for deeper dives into government accountability, policy analysis, and the stories behind the headlines that shape our democracy.